Imagine this. You have only 48 hours left to live. A deadly infection is spreading through your body, slowly turning you from a human into a monster. And in your arms is an innocent baby girl who has no one else but you. So what do? Do you give up? Or do you fight until your very last breath to save her? Today's story is about a father who lost himself completely, but gave his daughter a second chance at life. The story begins on a quiet river, where a small boat glides gently across the water. On board are Andy, his wife, and their little baby. From the outside, everything looks calm, peaceful, almost perfect. But beneath that surface, everything is falling apart. Suddenly, Andy notices a family standing by the riverbank. With hope in his eyes, he waves and calls out, "Hello." But what happens next is chilling. The man doesn't wave back. Instead, he raises a gun and points it straight at Andy. In his eyes, there's only fear and hatred, because this world isn't the same anymore. A deadly virus has brought humanity to its knees, an infection that destroys the human mind, and within 48 hours, turns people into savage hunters, into monsters. The boat keeps moving, but now the air feels heavier than ever. They're running out of food, and Andy's wife can't hide her worry anymore. Andy tries to reassure her, but the truth is, he's just as scared inside. Then suddenly, he spots something in the water, an old, abandoned boat drifting nearby. A spark of hope. Andy boards it and starts searching through it. And just like that, luck seems to be on his side. The boat is filled with food and supplies, but the moment he exhales in relief, he hears something strange coming from the dark cabin. Sensing danger, Andy doesn't waste a second. He grabs whatever he can and rushes back to his boat. When he returns and shares the good news, for the first time, his wife's eyes light up with hope. They now have enough supplies to survive for months. But that hope doesn't last long. Greed, or maybe desperation, takes over. Without telling Andy, his wife goes back to the abandoned boat to get more supplies, and just as she's about to leave, two hands suddenly grab her and pull her into the darkness. Chaos erupts. Screams echo. Somehow, she manages to escape and make it back, but everything has changed. When Andy sees her, blood is pouring from her leg. The wound is deep, but what's even deeper is the truth he refuses to accept. She already knows. Her end is near. She's infected. She tells Andy, "Leave me. I could become a danger to our own child." But Andy refuses to believe it. He tries to convince himself maybe it was just some sea creature, not a human. But when she tells him that she saw human fingers, Andy's world collapses. Now time is running out. Just 48 hours, Andy makes a decision. He won't let her die like this. Leaving the safety of the river, he takes the dangerous path on land. He has only one goal, to find a doctor, no matter what it takes. Along the way, they find a car among a pile of abandoned vehicles. Miraculously, it starts. Holding on to hope, they move forward, but with every passing moment, the virus tightens its grip on her. Her condition gets worse, and the silent, empty roads seem to whisper one question. Will Andy reach in time to save her? Or will he be forced to watch the woman he loves turn into something else entirely? The situation had now turned even more terrifying. Andy's wife had lost her last shred of hope. She knew the truth. She had become a walking danger to her own child, a ticking time bomb that could go off at any moment. Screaming in desperation, she begs Andy, "Leave me here, please. At least our baby will survive." But Andy, he wasn't heartless. He wasn't the kind of man who gives up. Somehow, he calms her down, holds her together, and helps her back into the car as they continue their journey. But fate had something else planned, a zombie. Andy panics, he jerks the steering wheel, because standing right in front of them was a hunter. The tires screech, and the next second, crash! The car slams violently into something. When the dust settles, the sight in front of him is horrifying. A sharp wooden stake has pierced through the car, straight through his wife's abdomen. Death was now only moments away. Andy, too, loses consciousness from the impact. Sometime later, when he finally opens his eyes, everything has changed. His wife was no longer the woman he once loved. The light in her eyes was gone. In its place, there was nothing but emptiness. She had fully turned into a zombie, but before losing herself completely, that mother gathered her last bit of strength and left a message on the car door, "Save our daughter." Andy's heart shatters, but time doesn't even allow him to grieve. As he turns to rescue his baby, suddenly, that horrifying version of his wife sinks her teeth into his arm. Pain, shock, terror, everything crashes down on him at once. And yet, somehow, he manages to pull his baby out of the car. Now everything was on the edge of collapse. His wife was gone. And now the same infection had entered his body. Andy looks at his watch and starts a countdown, 48 hours. That's all the time he has, before he turns from a man into something else. Now there was only one question. What will happen to his innocent baby? After that, in the middle of this fear and desperation, he suddenly encounters the same zombie again, the one that caused the crash. Andy grabs a piece of wood, ready to strike, but then Out of nowhere, a girl appears like lightning and stops his hand. Her name was Tommy. What Tommy does next leaves even Andy stunned. That zombie wasn't a stranger. It was her father. Tommy had tied up her father's face so he wouldn't hurt anyone. Then she cuts her own hand slightly and smears her blood on a nearby tree. Drawn by the scent, her zombie father moves toward it. She was leading her own father like a controlled animal, exhausted, broken, barely holding on. Andy clutches his baby close and keeps moving forward. Night begins to fall, and in the darkness, he spots a faint glow in the distance, a streetlight, a final flicker of hope. There stood a school, and inside that school lived a woman. She treats Andy's wounds, gives him some relief, and offers them shelter for the night. Andy, who has nothing left to lose, decides to stay. But is this place really safe? And will these remaining 48 hours be enough for him to find a new life for his daughter? The night was thick with darkness, and deep in the jungle, flames of fire flickered wildly. Andy stood by the window, staring outside. A group of tribal people had gathered around the fire, and in the middle of it, a helpless mother's voice echoed, "Tommy! Tommy!" The girl Andy had met on the road. But this story had another side, and it was even more heartbreaking. Tommy had been hiding her zombie father from the world. She knew if her tribe found out, even for a moment, they wouldn't hesitate. They would kill him, because for them, the rule was simple. Infected means death. But for Tommy, he wasn't a monster. He was her father, the man she loved more than anyone in the world, and she wasn't ready to lose him at any cost. The next morning brought a new battle for Andy. Time was slipping through his fingers like sand. The virus was slowly taking over his body. He couldn't leave his baby with the woman at the school, because she herself was close to death. Before he left, the woman showed Andy an old photograph. In it, a little Tommy was smiling in her father's arms. She looked at Andy and said softly, "If you want your daughter to have a future, you need to find Tommy. Maybe she's your child's second chance." Andy had no other choice. The journey began again. On the way, he spotted an abandoned vehicle. Slowly, cautiously, he moved toward it. But then, bang! A gunshot shattered the silence. Andy froze, but in the next moment he realized the bullet wasn't meant for him. It had hit a hunter, coming up behind him. Ahead, a man was trapped under a heavy cylinder. That man was Vic. Vic shouted, "Hurry! They'll come running when they hear the noise." Andy didn't hesitate. Gathering what little strength he had left, he used the vehicle to shift the heavy weight and saved Vic's life. Grateful, or at least pretending to be, Vic took Andy back to his home, a place that looked more like a fortress than a house. His wife was there too. For a brief moment, Andy felt like he had found an ally, someone still human in this terrifying world. But the truth was something else entirely. Vic led Andy to a specific area. All around them, a swarm of zombies circled endlessly, and in the center was a large cage. Together, Vic and Andy took them down one by one. But as Andy stepped closer to the cage, he froze. There was no animal inside. Instead, it was that same innocent girl, Tommy, locked inside. Andy's blood boiled. He turned to Vic, furious. "What is this?" And that's when Vic, without a hint of shame, revealed his true face. To him, Tommy wasn't human. She was bait. He locked her in the cage so the zombies would be drawn toward her, and then he'd kill them and loot whatever valuables they carried. His greed had gone far beyond humanity. He wanted to become the richest man in this new world, no matter how many innocent lives it cost. Now Andy stood at a crossroads. On one side, his dying hope. On the other, a man who was a stain on humanity itself. Will Andy be able to free Tommy from this hell? Or will he too become just another victim of this ruthless world? The sight inside the cage made Andy's soul tremble. Vic, in a calm, almost emotionless tone, begins to explain, "In this world, there's no place for sympathy. If you want to survive, think only about yourself and your child." But the truth was even more horrifying. It wasn't just Tommy in that cage. There was also a helpless, old tribal man trapped inside. Vic's greed had completely blinded him. Night falls deeper, and in the silence, a broken Andy quietly gets up. He leaves his baby in the cradle and walks outside. There's only one thought in his mind. Before I turn into a monster, I should end everything. But just as he's about to take that step, someone stops him. It was Lauren. Slowly, she reveals a truth that shakes Andy to his core. "Vic is not my husband. He's the man who killed my real husband." The ground beneath Andy feels like it's slipping away. Lauren warns him, "Your baby is not safe here." Now Andy had only 20 hours left. Two choices. Either he dies here, slowly and helplessly, or he somehow gets his baby to that safe family he saw near the river. But escaping wasn't going to be easy. Before he could act, Vic shows up. He drags Andy and throws him into the same cage, where Tommy was already imprisoned. Tommy is terrified when she sees Andy, because she had seen him with Vic. But Andy tries to calm her. "I'm not your enemy." Now there was only one way out, and Andy makes the biggest gamble of his life. He ties a piece of meat to a heavy chain and throws it outside the cage. As the smell of blood spreads through the air, a pack of hungry zombies rushes in. They pull at the meat with such force. Crack! The cage door rips open. Taking advantage of the chaos, Andy and Tommy escape, and running as fast as they can, they reach the place where Lauren and Andy's baby are waiting. But the story wasn't over yet. Just as they're about to leave, Vic wakes up. He grabs his gun and takes aim at Andy, and then Lauren steps forward. She becomes a shield, standing between Andy, Tommy, and the bullet. Bang! The shot fires, and Lauren collapses to the ground. Andy doesn't have time to stop. With a heavy heart, he grabs his baby and Tommy and runs. Vic gives chase, but the darkness and thick jungle swallow them whole. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight bring a new kind of pain for Tommy. She reaches the place where she had tied her father, but now only a lifeless body remains. Her father had died, trapped among the wooden stakes. For Tommy, everything was over. Her world was gone. Andy tries to console her. "Your father was already gone long ago." But the pain was too deep. Tommy wasn't ready to listen. Andy understands. His time is almost up. He tells her, "Come with me. We need to reach that safe place." But Tommy is broken. She has given up. She no longer has the strength to move forward. Now Andy has no other choice. Holding his baby tightly to his chest, he walks alone toward that faint, distant hope. Now there is only one question left. Will Andy, in his final hours, be able to place his daughter into the right hands? The ticking of the clock had now become a countdown to death for Andy. When he looked at his timer with trembling hands, his heart sank. Only 9 hours left. That was it. After that, everything would be over. Now the question wasn't whether he would survive. The real question was, would his innocent daughter become a helpless victim in this world? Or would she find a safe place to live? But his body was starting to give up. Suddenly, Andy is hit by a violent seizure. His eyes roll back, and he collapses to the ground, unconscious. As darkness takes over, only one thought crosses his mind. It's over, but when he opens his eyes again, he feels something strange. A sense of calm. His daughter was safe, and the one holding her was Tommy. The same Tommy who had given up but for this little life. She chose to stand up again. Tommy knew every path in the forest, every hidden trail, every shortcut. She carries Andy forward, moving with lightning speed until they reach the riverbank. But what they see there shatters Andy's last hope. The head of that family had already fallen victim to a zombie. The man stood there, waving his gun like a madman, and shouted at Andy, "There are 6 bullets in this gun. 4 for my family, and 2 for you." Then he says something so horrifying, it chills the soul. "Kill your baby with your own hands, or this world will tear her apart." Andy is shaken to his core. He refuses immediately. I could never do that. He could not hand his daughter over to death. As Andy turns to leave, bang, 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 3 gunshots echo in the silence. The man had ended his own world. For a moment, everything goes quiet. With a heavy heart, Andy picks up the gun. Now, only 2 bullets remained. Just then, Tommy notices the photographs falling out of Andy's bag. Those same pictures given to him by the sick woman. Seeing those old memories, Tommy's eyes fill with tears. And in that moment, her trust in Andy becomes unbreakable. She points toward the smoke rising in the distance. "My people are there. Come, we'll go together." Now the 3 of them move forward, with a fragile new hope. They pass through an old railway tunnel. Darkness, silence, fear, walking beside them at every step. But fate had one more trap waiting. Standing ahead was that same monster, Vic. Without wasting a second, Andy hides his baby and Tommy inside an old vehicle. And then, he quietly steps into the line of infected people, whom Vic was executing one by one. As Vic comes closer to Andy, suddenly, Andy gathers his last bit of strength and lunges at him. A brutal fight breaks out. Punches, kicks, blood, dust, everything blurs together. But this time, luck was on Vic's side. He snatches Andy's gun, and bang! The bullet hits Andy. He collapses to the ground, writhing in pain. Now that monster's eyes lock onto the vehicle, where 2 innocent lives were hiding. Vic rips open the door and drags Tommy out by her hair. He slams her hard against the truck, and she falls unconscious. Now Andy is wounded, Tommy is out cold, and that little baby is about to fall into the hands of a monster. Is this the end of a father's fight? Or is there still one last miracle left? The story has now reached its most emotional and soul-shaking final chapter. Vic was sitting there holding Andy's little baby in his arms, as if he had just claimed the most precious thing in the world. A wounded Andy crawls toward him and in a breaking voice says, "Give me my daughter back." The bitterness inside Vic finally erupts. He shouts in anger, You took Lauren away from me, but Andy looks him straight in the eye and speaks the truth. Lauren was never yours. Those words hit Vic like a knife. The ground beneath him seems to disappear. As he faces the truth, his stone-cold heart begins to crack. Regret starts burning him from the inside. And finally, he slowly hands the baby back to Andy. For a moment, everything stands still. Andy holds his daughter tightly against his chest, as if he just got his entire world back. Together, Andy, Thami, and the baby start moving forward again. But their struggle wasn't over yet. Blood was still flowing from Tommy's head, her eyes struggling to stay open. Holding her up, Andy says, "If you stop now, we'll never make it." But the truth was, Andy's own body was failing too. His seizures return, his breathing begins to break apart. And yet, the moment he hears his baby's faint voice, something inside him rises one last time. He gets up and keeps walking. But every human has a limit. At one point, Andy's legs give out. He collapses to the ground. Now he understands. His human life has reached its end. Gently, he holds Tommy's hand and makes her promise, "Take care of my daughter." Then, he kisses his baby's forehead and hugs her one last time. This was the moment that could make even the strongest heart break. But Andy wasn't done yet. He makes one final arrangement. He asks Tommy for that small box, the one that could help control him. On the other side, smoke was rising into the sky. Tommy's tribe was fighting off the zombies. And then, through that smoke and ash, a figure appears. It was Andy. On his back, Tommy and the baby were riding. But this wasn't the Andy we knew. He had fully turned into a hunter. And yet, the father inside him was still alive. Before losing himself completely, Andy had created a master plan. He had stuffed something into his mouth so he wouldn't be able to bite anyone. And Tommy tied a piece of meat to a stick, guiding him forward, and Andy's zombie body followed wherever she led. A father had turned his own curse into his daughter's protection. As they reached the tribe, Tommy was still holding Andy's hand, but the tribe sensed the danger, and in the very next moment, a spear pierced straight through Andy's chest. Everything comes to an end. A father's struggle finally finds peace. Thomi and her mother embrace the little baby. Andy gave his life to give his daughter a new family, a new life. The tribe honors his bravery and gives him a respectful farewell. This story reminds us, no matter how cruel the world becomes, a father's love is stronger than death itself. If Andy's sacrifice moved you, make sure to like this story. What do you think? Did Andy have any other choice? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next story, just as intense, just as unforgettable.